I'm Lora Ballweber. I'm an associate professor with the College of Veterinary Medicine and Biomedical Sciences at Colorado State University.
I'm Bert Stromberg. I'm a professor of parasitology at the University of Minnesota College of Veterinary Medicine.
I'm Lou Gasbarre. I'm recently retired from the Agricultural Research Service, where I was the research leader for Bovine Functional Genomics Laboratory.
The survey is the National Animal Health Monitoring System. They are a non-regulatory part of USDA Animal Plant Health Inspection Service, and every year they do a survey of one of our livestock commodity groups. This past year they worked on the the cow-calf industry. The last survey was in 1997, so it became clear, they planned these things a couple of years in advance, and it became clear a couple of years ago that it was time to revisit the cow-calf segment of the industry. The first part is a questionnaire that the producers are asked to answer questions to, obviously. And what they do is the veterinary medical officers go out and actually sit with the producer and go through the series of questions. The questions were on a wide variety of topics, including certain diseases such as bovine viral diarrhea, certain parasite issues. For us, the questions revolved around, have you done fecal testing? Have you used parasiticides? What groups of animals do you routinely use parasiticides in? How often do you use them? Which ones do you use? And so forth. The vast majority of producers that do deworm are deworming according to a set schedule, as opposed to using any type of diagnostics to help them make decisions about whether or not they actually need to deworm.
From my perspective, I thought one of the most interesting parts is that they gained most of their information from fellow producers as opposed to the veterinarian. And then the other choices that they make, and that is when do they deworm and who do they deworm. And I was surprised that the majority of them deworm the mama cows, as opposed to what we're usually concerned with, which are usually the calves and the replacement heifers and stockers.
Well, one of the questions that was asked was, how often do you deworm certain production types? So that was broken into unweaned calves, replacement heifers, weaned but not yet calved, weaned stocker calves, and then adult cows. And as Bert said, there was a good majority of the producers that were deworming the adult cows. The next highest group that was dewormed most often was the replacement heifers. The calves were being dewormed the least amount, and the stockers were falling somewhere in between.
I think what it probably tells us, at least from my perspective of understanding what is needed in parasitology in the cattle industry, and that is that I think we need a good educational program, particularly for producers as well as veterinarians. As Laura had mentioned, the veterinarian is not the highest source of information gathering in terms of when should you use anti-parasitic products. I think we need to spend some time, and maybe the NAHMS data that we've generated will offer us an opportunity to help explain the dynamics of parasitism and the fact that, you know, my first choice wouldn't be the mama cows. I would prefer to pick the most susceptible that we want to make sure we can keep parasite free. Well, I think as Laura has mentioned, that most of these NAHMS surveys in the past have had, well, there's only been two, have asked these general questions about parasitism and when do you deworm, when do you think are the important problems in raising cattle, of which parasitism or internal and external are usually the two most prominent areas of concern. The one that we had, and that is that there's a lot of reports about anthelmintic resistance. And we were particularly interested in adding a section to the NAHMS survey this year, asking or addressing the issue of anthelmintic resistance. And we decided that the best way to evaluate this was to actually do an experiment, as it were. And that was to ask individual producers if they would like to participate in the fecal egg count reduction test on their particular farm. And this would involve collecting data, collecting basically fecal material, having that sent into one of our 3 labs, and looking at a before and after egg count. And there was a lot of discussion as to what kinds of products they might use, and we decided that that would just become much more of an issue to try and choose a product. So we asked them to simply use the product that they would normally use in their handling of cattle. We asked them very specifically to use young animals, less than 18 months of age, animals that have been on pasture for at least 4 weeks, animals that had not been dewormed in the previous 45 days. And then what we wanted them to do was they would collect 2 sets of fecal samples, and as we referred to it, it was phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 was really just, what do we have there? And this is the same data that we would use then in terms of calculating the fecal egg count reduction test. It also gave us an idea as to what is the prevalence of parasites. We found that about 80% of the herds had worms that were evaluated in this process. And then in this phase 1, we had 99 herds that participated.